pregnant and thrown from a moving train. The cowboy who caught her changed her fate. Outside the train, the stars blinked like diamonds scattered across a black velvet sky. Inside, Mara Ellison clutched her growing belly and tried to calm the sudden rush of fear that had settled over her. She had no family here, no friends, only a quiet hope that she could reach the next station and find safety. But the train was not a safe place today. There were people who wanted to erase her quietly, and Mara knew that hiding wouldn't save her forever. She kept her head low and her thoughts quiet, hoping the officers patrolling the train wouldn't notice her presence. Her heart thumped like a drum in her chest as she moved past a compartment door, careful not to bump into anyone. She had been here before, riding these mag rails across frontier worlds, always keeping to the shadows. But this time felt different. Her gut told her something bad was coming. And then it happened. A firm hand grabbed her shoulder from behind. "You're coming with us," a voice said, sharp but not cruel. Before she could respond, another pair of hands guided her toward the open side door of the moving train. The wind howled like a living creature, tugging at her clothes and hair. She fought to resist, her feet slipping against the slick metal floor, but the hands were stronger, insistent. "Wait, please, Mara gasped, but the words were lost in the roar of the wind. In the moment between fear and instinct, she realized she was falling. The world spun around her. The red canyons rushed up to meet her, the stars streaking past like fast-moving sparks. Mara's heart froze in terror. She thought of her baby, the small life growing inside her, and a surge of determination pushed her body to react. She reached out with all her strength, but there was nothing to grab onto. Then suddenly, there was another presence in the sky. A figure on a grav saddle, a lone cowboy riding a hovering bike that glimmered faintly in the starlight, shot through the air toward her. The cowboy reached out with steady hands, catching her mid-fall. The sudden, solid weight of another human holding her brought Mara back from panic to shock. "You're safe now," the cowboy said, his voice calm and warm. "I've got you." Mara could barely breathe, clinging to him as they glided down toward the canyon floor. The wind was still strong, tugging at them, but the cowboy's grip never wavered. They landed gently on a soft patch of alien grass, the grav saddle whirring softly as it powered down. Her knees buckled, but he held her upright. She looked up at him, her chest heaving with relief. He was tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in a simple outfit that looked like it belonged more to Earth's past than to this futuristic world. His hat shaded his eyes, but there was a spark of humanity in his gaze that made Mara trust him immediately. I don't know how to thank you," she whispered, trembling. "You don't have to thank me," he said with a small smile. "Name S. Caleb Ward, you're safe here." For the first time in hours, or maybe days, Mara felt something she hadn't felt in a long while: hope. Caleb led her toward a small settlement perched on a nearby plateau. The settlement was humble, built from salvaged metal and old earth wood, but there was life there. Children ran between buildings, their laughter echoing across the open plains. Small gardens flourished despite the dry, red soil. Lights twinkled from tiny homes, powered by solar cells and old generators. "You'll be safe here," Caleb repeated. "No one will harm you." Mara's hands instinctively went to her belly. "My baby," she whispered. She hadn't spoken of the child to anyone, not her family, not the officers chasing her, not even to herself fully, but Caleb's presence made it easier to speak. "You and your baby will be safe," he assured her. "We look after each other here." As they entered the settlement, Mara noticed something remarkable. Despite the harsh, rugged environment, the people here moved with a quiet confidence. They worked together, laughed together, and shared what little they had. Mara realized that this wasn't just a settlement. It was a small world where humanity had chosen kindness over cruelty, where people survived not through force, but through cooperation. Caleb brought her to a small dwelling at the edge of the plateau. It was simple but clean, with a warm bed, soft blankets, and a small heater powered by solar cells. Mara sank onto the bed, exhausted, and felt a strange mix of relief and disbelief. "You can rest here," Caleb said. "I'll get you some food. You need to regain your strength." Mara nodded, too tired to speak. As Caleb left, she looked out the small window at the canyon below. The train tracks stretched like silver threads into the horizon, disappearing into the stars. Somewhere along those tracks, her pursuers were probably searching for her. But here, in this quiet settlement, she felt the first flicker of safety she had known in weeks. Over the next few days, Mara began to heal. Caleb visited often, bringing food, water, and supplies from the nearby town. He didn't ask questions about why she had been thrown from the train or what she carried with her. He only offered help, steady and unassuming. Mara found herself telling him small details of her life, discovering that speaking aloud could be a comfort instead of a fear. Caleb shared stories too, about the frontier, about the settlement, and about life in the spaces between worlds. He spoke of old Earth customs, of people who worked hard not for wealth or power but simply to help one another. Mara listened, fascinated. In every story, every small act of kindness, she saw humanity at its best. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the red canyons, Mara sat outside the dwelling, feeling the cool night air against her face. Caleb joined her, carrying 2 steaming cups of nutrient tea. They sat in silence for a moment, watching the moons reflect in the canyon pools below. "Your baby is lucky," Caleb said quietly, "and so are you. Not everyone gets a second chance like this." Mara smiled faintly, tears prickling her eyes. "I don't know how I survived," she admitted. "Humans survive in ways nothing else can," Caleb replied. "We adapt, we endure, and sometimes we help each other." Mara felt a warmth in her chest. The words were simple, but they carried truth. In a galaxy of stars and danger, of uncertainty and cruelty, humanity still mattered. It still had the power to protect, to nurture, and to create hope where none seemed possible. Days passed, and Mara grew stronger. The settlement became her sanctuary. She watched children play, neighbors work side by side, and strangers greet each other with smiles instead of suspicion. She realized that this place was not just a home, it was a living example of the human spirit. She also noticed how Caleb moved through the settlement. People respected him, not out of fear but out of trust. He offered guidance when needed and helped quietly without seeking recognition. Mara began to understand that strength was not always loud or violent. Sometimes it was steady, kind, and invisible. One afternoon, as the sun painted the canyon walls in golden light, Mara wandered to the edge of the plateau. The Starlight Express glinted in the distance, moving toward the next station. She thought about her life before this, about the fear and uncertainty she had felt. And she realized something profound. She was still here, she was still alive, and she had been given a chance not just to survive but to live. Caleb appeared beside her, following her gaze. "You'll ride again someday," he said gently, "but for now you're safe." "That's what matters." Mara nodded, feeling the truth of his words. The canyon stretched out endlessly before them, a world of unknown possibilities. For the first time in a long time, she felt ready to face them. Not alone, but with someone who understood what it meant to be human and to believe in humanity. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with colors no painter could replicate, Mara felt a quiet certainty. She would survive. Her baby would survive. And together, they would discover what it truly meant to live in a universe where humanity's kindness could shine brighter than the stars themselves. The frontier was wide, wild, and full of danger. But Mara had found something stronger than fear. She had found trust, hope, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. And she knew that no matter what the universe threw at her next, she would meet it with courage and compassion, just as Caleb had shown her. The night deepened, the stars glimmered, and the canyon whispered its ancient secrets. Mara closed her eyes, letting the peace of the settlement wash over her. Somewhere far above, the Starlight Express carried others onward, but she remained grounded, safe in a place where humanity had not forgotten its best qualities. And for the first time in a long while, Mara felt truly free. The morning sun spilled gold across the plateau, waking the settlement with warmth. Birds with iridescent feathers darted between the small homes, their chirps blending with the soft hum of solar generators. Mara awoke in the simple bed Caleb had prepared for her. The covers smelled faintly of lavender and ozone, a curious mix that reminded her of safety and new beginnings. She stretched gently, mindful of her growing belly. The past few days had been a whirlwind of fear, relief, and cautious trust. The memory of falling from the Starlight Express still haunted her, but each time she thought of it, she also remembered Caleb's steady hands, the way he had caught her when she had nothing left to hold on to. As Mara stepped outside, she found Caleb already tending to a small garden. His wide-brimmed hat cast a shadow over his face, but his movements were calm and precise. He was planting small seedlings, careful not to disturb the fragile soil. Despite living on a frontier world, Caleb moved with patience and attention that reminded Mara of old Earth's simpler times. "Good morning," she called softly. Caleb looked up, his lips curling into a faint smile. "Morning, sleep well." "I did," she said. "Thanks to you." He shrugged modestly. "You're welcome, but the garden helped too. There's something about working with the earth or soil in this case that makes problems seem smaller." Mara tilted her head, studying him. "I've never seen anyone work like that before, with such care." Caleb chuckled. "Humans forget it sometimes. Out here, you either take care of what's around you or nothing survives, and that includes people." His words carried weight. Mara realized that Caleb didn't just survive this world by strength or luck. He survived through attentiveness and compassion. And now, she wondered, maybe she could learn the same. For the rest of the morning, Mara helped him water the plants and rearrange some small solar panels. Her movements were cautious but eager. It had been a long time since she had felt useful. As she worked, she noticed the children of the settlement playing nearby. They laughed and ran without fear, climbing over rocks and chasing small robotic pets Caleb had built from spare parts. Their joy was infectious, and for a moment, Mara forgot about the officers who had thrown her from the train, the dangers waiting beyond the canyon, and the uncertainty of her future. By mid-morning, Caleb called her over. "I think it's time you met the rest of the people here," he said. "It's important to feel like you belong." Mara nodded, following him through the winding paths of the settlement. She noticed that each dwelling had small details reflecting the personality of its owner. A colorful mural on one wall, a tiny windmill spinning gently in the yard of another, and flowers carefully arranged in containers fashioned from old train carts. This world had been built by humans who cared, who had chosen creativity over destruction. They reached a central square where the settlers had gathered. A small group worked together to repair a broken water purifier, while another set tended to a communal garden. Everyone paused to greet Caleb, their voices warm and welcoming. Mara felt a lump in her throat. She had spent months, maybe years, avoiding people, hiding and running. And now here, strangers smiled at her as if she already belonged. "This is Mara," Caleb announced. "She'll be staying with us for a while." The settlers offered nods, smiles, and soft words of welcome. One woman brought Mara a small mug of steaming tea. "It's good to see new faces," she said gently. "We have room for anyone who wants to build, help, or learn." Mara accepted the mug, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the drink. She sipped carefully, realizing for the first time in a long while that humans could choose kindness freely, even in the harshest environments. Over the next few days, Mara began to settle into a rhythm. Caleb taught her how to maintain the grav-saddle bike, a task that required patience and focus. She helped repair small machines, learning how humans could adapt and reuse technology in ways that machines alone could not achieve. Sometimes, she felt clumsy and unsure, but Caleb's quiet encouragement made her persist. One evening, while Mara and Caleb worked on a small communication array, she hesitated. "Caleb, why do you help people like me, even when it's dangerous?" He paused, turning to her with a thoughtful expression. "I don't see it as danger," he said. "I see it as responsibility. Humans survive because we help each other. That's how we've lasted this long across worlds and centuries. If I can give someone a chance to live, to hope, why wouldn't I?" Mara felt a tear slip down her cheek. She had never met anyone who spoke with such certainty, who treated life as precious in every moment. "I thank you," she whispered. "You don't have to," Caleb replied. "Just promise me you'll do the same someday." Mara nodded, feeling a strange sense of purpose take root in her heart. She wanted to survive, yes, but she also wanted to be part of this human story, one of cooperation, ingenuity, and care. As her pregnancy progressed, Mara noticed something extraordinary. The child inside her reacted to the machines and devices around them in subtle ways. A grav saddle would hum slightly when she was near, solar panels would adjust automatically to the sunlight, and small robotic pets would seem unusually attentive. Scientists had long theorized that humans could form unique, symbiotic connections with technology. Mara's unborn child seemed to be proof of that possibility. Caleb noticed too. One afternoon, while Mara rested in the small dwelling, he quietly observed the interaction. "Your baby, there's something special here," he said softly. "I've never seen this before. It's as if your child understands the machines the way humans understand each other." Mara's hand went to her belly. "Do you think this child could change things?" she asked, unsure. Caleb shook his head with a smile. "Not sure yet, but I do know that humans have always found ways to thrive where nothing else could. Maybe your child is the next step." The thought filled Mara with awe. Despite the danger, despite the uncertainty of the galaxy outside the canyon walls, there was something remarkable happening here. Life continued, adapted, and evolved, not through force or control, but through intelligence, care, and human resilience. One morning, news arrived via the repaired communication array. Traders and travelers passing near the canyon had reported strange activity, a small settlement functioning peacefully, producing enough energy and food for everyone, yet refusing to exploit outsiders or hoard resources. Some called it impossible, others called it a miracle. Mara realized that their quiet community was starting to inspire curiosity across the frontier. Humans, she thought, had a way of creating hope even in the loneliest corners of the universe. The settlement continued to grow in small ways. Mara helped Caleb organize a workshop for children, teaching them how to repair grav saddles and simple machines. She discovered that teaching and guiding others brought her joy, a feeling she hadn't allowed herself to experience in years. She watched as children learned to problem solve, experiment, and succeed through their own effort. In their laughter, she heard the echo of something she had almost forgotten: human ingenuity, resilience, and hope. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the plateau, Caleb invited Mara to ride with him on the grav saddle bike. Together, they soared above the canyon, the wind cool and freeing against their faces. Mara felt exhilarated. She could see the settlement below, the winding tracks of the Starlight Express, and the endless horizon beyond. "You're part of this now," Caleb said quietly, glancing at her. "Not just as a guest, but as someone who belongs. And your child will belong too." Mara nodded, tears forming in her eyes. She felt a quiet strength rising within her, a promise to survive, to nurture, and to continue the legacy of humanity. Out here, on the edge of a wild world, she realized that she was no longer alone. She had found not just safety, but a community that embodied the very best of human nature. As the night fell and stars glittered above, Mara whispered to the child within her belly. "We're going to be okay," she said softly. We'll be part of something greater. You'll see how humans can shine, even in the darkest places. Caleb rode silently beside her, a steady presence in a universe of uncertainty. Together, they traced the canyon trails, their hearts full of hope, and their minds filled with the possibilities that awaited them. Mara understood now that life was not about the dangers outside, but about the courage, kindness, and ingenuity humans carried within themselves. The frontier world stretched endlessly, a canvas of challenge and opportunity. And Mara, with Caleb at her side and the child inside her, felt ready to face it all, not with fear, but with trust in the enduring strength of humanity. For in this small, humble settlement, she had discovered a truth the galaxy often forgot, that humans, even alone and even in the wildest reaches of space, had the power to create, nurture, and inspire hope. And that was a power no force in the universe could ever take away. The settlement had settled into a quiet rhythm, where every day carried purpose and every person contributed in their own way. Mara, now more comfortable in her new home, spent mornings tending to small machines and teaching the children about repair, adaptation, and observation. The afternoons were often filled with walks across the plateau, observing the landscape and gathering herbs for meals. One afternoon, Mara noticed something unusual. A small grav saddle bike, one Caleb had built for training the children, suddenly adjusted its speed and hover height without anyone touching the controls. The children laughed at the playful motion, thinking it was Caleb's doing, but Mara felt a chill of wonder. Her hand instinctively rested on her belly. "The baby," she whispered, eyes wide. Caleb appeared at her side, noticing her expression. "What is it?" "I think my child is interacting with the machines," Mara said slowly. "It's subtle, but look." She pointed to the grav saddle hovering steadily over uneven ground, responding almost as if it knew where it was safe to land. Caleb studied it, fascination spreading across his face. This is remarkable. We've theorized about human intuition syncing with machines, but I never thought it would appear so early, even before birth." Mara swallowed hard. "Could this change things?" Caleb placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Maybe. But more importantly, it shows what humans can do that no machine or program can replicate. We have curiosity, care, and instinct. Your child might just amplify that." For the first time, Mara saw a possibility she hadn't dared to imagine. The galaxy was vast, filled with machines, programs, and AI systems that often replaced humans. Yet, here on this frontier world, she realized that the human spirit, creativity, empathy, and intuition could still surpass technology. Over the next few weeks, the settlement became a living laboratory for discovery. Mara noticed subtle signs of the child's influence. A solar array adjusted automatically during cloudy afternoons to maximize sunlight. Small robotic helpers moved efficiently around the settlement, anticipating needs without any command. Even the plants seemed to grow faster, as if the environment itself responded to the presence of life and attention. Caleb and Mara spent long hours observing these small miracles. "Your child will grow to understand the world differently than any of us," Caleb said one evening, as they watched the twin moons rise over the canyon. "Not better, not worse, just differently. And that difference can be a gift." Mara touched her belly with a mixture of awe and protectiveness. "I just hope we can keep this place safe enough for them to learn," Caleb smiled. "Humans have always found ways to thrive in the wildest environments. We adapt, we cooperate, and we learn from each other. That's how we last." As Mara rested in the evenings, she found herself dreaming about the future. She imagined the child growing up here, surrounded by people who valued ingenuity and kindness over power and greed. She imagined the child exploring the canyon cliffs, understanding machines and humans in ways no one else could. She imagined a world where humans could continue to grow, evolve, and inspire, not through force, but through care and intelligence. One morning, a visitor arrived from a distant settlement along the mag rail. His grav saddle hummed softly as he landed near the edge of the plateau. Mara and Caleb approached cautiously, welcoming but curious. The visitor introduced himself as Joran, a scout who traveled the frontier observing settlements for innovation and sustainability. "I've heard stories," Joran said, his eyes bright with curiosity. "A settlement that thrives without hoarding, that teaches children to innovate, and that works together as a community." It sounded impossible. "But it seems it's real." Caleb nodded. "It's real because humans make it real. Cooperation, curiosity, and care. Those are the tools we use." Mara watched the exchange quietly, her hand resting on her belly. Joran's presence reminded her that the world beyond the plateau was still vast and sometimes skeptical, but also curious. And curiosity, she realized, was the first step toward understanding and change. Joran stayed for several days, observing the settlement, asking questions, and documenting small improvements in design, agriculture, and technology. Mara noticed how the child inside her reacted during these visits. Whenever Joran approached a machine, the grav saddles and helpers subtly adjusted, aligning themselves in ways that made observation easier. The baby seemed to sense intention, understanding human curiosity and amplifying it. One evening, Mara confided in Caleb. "Do you think it's too soon? That maybe we're expecting too much?" Caleb looked thoughtful. "Possibly, but every great change begins quietly. Humans don't need to understand everything immediately. They need to act with care, curiosity, and cooperation. That's already happening here. That child may just accelerate what humans can do naturally." Days turned into weeks, and Mara's body grew heavier. But the presence of the child, the settlement, and Caleb's steady support gave her strength. She began planning small projects with the children, teaching them how to repair, adapt, and think creatively. They built tiny wind turbines, simple water filters, and even grav saddle trainers for balance and coordination. Through these projects, Mara realized something profound. Children, when guided with care and curiosity, could learn far faster than machines or programs ever could. Humans had an innate ability to imagine, problem solve, and adapt, and the child she carried would inherit that legacy, perhaps amplifying it in ways she couldn't yet predict. One afternoon, as the children worked on a simple communication array, a sudden rainstorm swept across the plateau. The red soil became slippery, and the wind howled with sudden force. The children paused, unsure of what to do. Mara instinctively placed a hand on her belly, feeling the baby shift. Almost immediately, the small machines they had been using stabilized themselves. The grav saddle trainers held steady, and the communication array adjusted its panels to shelter the delicate circuits. The children stared in amazement. "It's like the machines know what to do," one of them exclaimed. Mara smiled, tears in her eyes. "They sometimes do," she whispered, "because humans are capable of understanding more than we think." Caleb stood beside her, his eyes soft with pride. "That's the point. Human understanding, intuition, and care, those are powers no machine can replicate, and your child is showing that from the very start." As the storm passed, Mara realized that life on this frontier world was not just about survival. It was about growth, discovery, and nurturing the potential within each human. The settlement, small as it was, represented what humans could achieve when they chose kindness, cooperation, and creativity over fear and competition. In the evenings, Mara often walked with Caleb to the edge of the plateau, gazing at the Starlight Express tracks winding through the canyons. Somewhere along those tracks, travelers and traders continued their journeys, unaware of the quiet revolution taking place here. Mara understood that the settlement was not just a home, it was a beacon, a model of what humanity could achieve when it worked together, cared for one another, and trusted in the potential of life itself. One night, as the twin moons reflected in the canyon pools, Mara spoke to the child within her belly. "You're going to see a world that's still full of kindness," she whispered. "You'll grow with people who care, who innovate, and who believe in each other. And one day, you'll help others see it too." Caleb stood quietly beside her, nodding. "Humans are stronger than the universe sometimes gives them credit for. They endure, they adapt, and they inspire. Your child is part of that story now." Mara felt a deep sense of peace. For the first time since being thrown from the train, she believed in the future, not just for herself, but for her child, the settlement, and the countless humans spread across the galaxy. In this quiet, rugged corner of the frontier, the settlement thrived. Machines and humans worked together in harmony. Children learned and explored, and Mara carried within her a living symbol of human potential, a child who would grow to understand, amplify, and inspire the very best of what humans could do. The galaxy outside remained vast and uncertain, but Mara knew one truth. Humans had the power to shape their destiny, not through weapons or fear, but through curiosity, care, and cooperation. And the child she carried would be the next step in that enduring journey. As the stars glittered above and the moons shone over the plateau, Mara whispered once more, "We're ready. Whatever comes next, we will face it together." Caleb smiled, resting a hand on hers. "Together," he agreed. And for the first time in a long while, Mara truly believed it. The morning sun glimmered off the red canyon cliffs, casting long shadows across the settlement. Birds flitted among the rooftops, and the soft hum of grav-saddle bikes filled the air. Life in the frontier settlement had become steady, a balance of work, learning, and care. Yet Mara felt a subtle stirring of excitement and curiosity. The child she carried was growing stronger every day, and the settlement itself was beginning to attract attention beyond the plateau. It started quietly. Small signals appeared on the communication array that Caleb had repaired months ago. Traders traveling along the mag rail routes reported sightings of the settlement, speaking of its innovation, self-sufficiency, and the harmony between humans and machines. Some shared stories of children learning and building in ways that amazed outsiders. Others were curious about the grav-saddle technology and the intuitive systems that seemed to anticipate human needs. At first, Mara and Caleb were cautious. They had created this settlement to survive and thrive, not to draw attention. But Caleb understood that this curiosity could become an opportunity to inspire others. "We've done what humans do best," he said one morning, adjusting a small grav saddle. "We've built, adapted, and cared. Now maybe it's time to share that." Mara nodded slowly. "But what if they don't understand? What if they misinterpret our intentions?" Caleb smiled. "Humans are always learning. Sometimes they need to see, to experience it for themselves. That's when change begins." The first official visitor arrived on a small mag-rail shuttle. Mara and Caleb met her at the edge of the plateau. She introduced herself as Leora, a representative of a frontier research collective. Her eyes sparkled with curiosity as she looked at the settlement, noting the carefully arranged gardens, the functioning grav saddles, and the thriving communal spaces. "I've heard stories," Leora said, "but nothing prepared me for this. How did you create all of this?" Caleb shrugged modestly. "By living like humans always have, working together, learning from mistakes, and caring for each other." Mara felt a rush of pride. Their quiet, humble life was inspiring someone from beyond the canyon. Leora moved through the settlement, speaking with the children, observing the machines, and asking questions. Mara noticed the child inside her reacting to Leora's presence, causing small machines to adjust and align more efficiently. It was subtle but unmistakable, a sign that the unborn child already had an intuitive understanding of human interaction and technology. Over the next few days, Mara, Caleb, and Leora worked together to broadcast the settlement's knowledge across the frontier network. They shared designs for small grav-saddle trainers, water purification systems, and solar energy setups. They recorded lessons for children on problem-solving and innovation. Every broadcast was carefully crafted, ensuring it could be shared freely and safely with other settlements, traders, and travelers. As the signal spread, the settlement began to gain recognition. Reports arrived from traders, explorers, and distant communities, praising the ingenuity and harmony they witnessed. Mara felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The child she carried was already part of something larger, a movement of humans rediscovering cooperation, creativity, and hope. One afternoon, Mara walked with Caleb to the edge of the plateau, watching a distant mag-rail shuttle gliding toward them. "Do you think people will understand what we're doing?" she asked, her voice thoughtful. Caleb smiled gently. "They already do. Humans are curious by nature. When they see something that works without greed or cruelty, they take notice, and sometimes they begin to copy it." Mara felt a warmth in her chest. She realized that this settlement, born from necessity and trust, was becoming a model for what humanity could achieve when it embraced its best qualities. They were not trying to control others or compete. They were simply living as humans had always thrived, through curiosity, cooperation, and care. The next visitor was a small delegation from a distant colony along the mag-rail. They arrived cautiously, observing the settlement from a distance before approaching. Mara greeted them warmly, introducing them to the children and showing them the working systems that made the settlement self-sufficient. The visitors were amazed, asking countless questions and taking careful notes. "You've created something remarkable," one of them said. "This could change how humans live in frontier worlds." Caleb nodded. "It already is. Humans have always found ways to survive and thrive in the harshest conditions. This settlement is proof that cooperation, creativity, and care matter more than anything else." As Mara watched, she realized that the child inside her was already playing a role in this transformation. Machines responded to the presence of visitors in ways that made learning and collaboration easier. It was subtle but unmistakable, a living example of human potential, amplified by the next generation. One evening, Mara and Caleb sat by a small pool of water, reflecting the twin moons. "Do you think it's too soon to share all this with the galaxy?" Mara asked. "What if people misunderstand or misuse it?" Caleb shook his head. "Humans have always misunderstood new ideas, but curiosity and cooperation will win in the end. People will see the results and they will follow. That's how progress happens, not through force but through example." Mara smiled faintly. "You always see the best in people, don't you?" "I see what humans are capable of," Caleb said, "and I trust that most of them want to do good. That's enough to start with." In the following weeks, the settlement became a hub of learning. Children from nearby areas were invited to visit, observing the systems, helping with projects, and learning skills they could take back to their homes. Mara guided them, teaching problem-solving, experimentation, and careful observation. She realized that sharing knowledge was just as important as survival. It was the key to shaping the future. Even the adults learned from each other. Traders shared insights about new materials, while settlers contributed ideas about agriculture, energy, and community organization. Every exchange reinforced a fundamental truth. Humans thrived best when they cooperated, shared knowledge, and respected one another. One evening, as Mara rested near the edge of the plateau, she spoke softly to the child within her. "You'll see how humans can work together," she whispered. "You'll grow in a world that values creativity, kindness, and understanding, and one day you'll help others see it too." Caleb joined her, resting a hand on her shoulder. "Humans have always been capable of extraordinary things," he said. "They survive, adapt, and inspire, and your child is already part of that story." Mara felt a surge of hope. Beyond the canyon walls, beyond the mag-rail routes and across the frontier, humans were watching, learning, and beginning to change. The settlement had become more than a home. It was a living example of what humanity could achieve when it focused on cooperation, innovation, and care. The twin moons rose, reflecting in the pools of the canyon. Mara and Caleb sat quietly, listening to the gentle hum of grav-saddle bikes and the laughter of children in the settlement. Somewhere out there, across the stars, people were seeing their broadcasts and discovering the possibilities of living differently. Mara understood that the settlement's influence would continue to grow, quietly spreading hope, knowledge, and human ingenuity. As the night deepened, Mara whispered again to the child. "We're ready for the future," she said. "Whatever comes next, we'll meet it together." Caleb squeezed her hand. "Together," he repeated. And for the first time since being thrown from the train, Mara felt a certainty she had never known, that humanity's best qualities, curiosity, empathy, and cooperation, could shine brighter than fear or danger. The frontier was vast and uncertain, but humans had the power to change it through example, and the settlement, her child, and Caleb were living proof. The stars glittered above, and the canyon whispered its ancient secrets. Mara closed her eyes, letting the peace and promise of the settlement wash over her. She knew that the signals sent across the void were more than just messages. They were sparks of hope, reminders that humans could inspire, guide, and teach one another. And as she drifted into sleep, she imagined the day her child would take first steps, explore the settlement, and continue the legacy of human ingenuity. The frontier world stretched endlessly, full of challenges and wonders, but Mara felt ready. With Caleb at her side and the child within her, she was prepared to meet the future, not with fear, but with trust in the enduring strength of humanity. The first rays of the sun touched the canyon cliffs, spilling gold and orange across the settlement. Birds rose into the sky, their wings catching the light, and the hum of grav-saddle bikes filled the air as children practiced balancing and navigating the terrain. The settlement had grown since Mara first arrived. Small gardens now flourished in every corner, water collectors gleamed in the sunlight, and workshops buzzed with the energy of humans learning, building, and creating together. Mara stood at the edge of the plateau, her hand resting on her belly. She could feel the child moving, sensing the world beyond her own heartbeat. It had been months since that terrifying day on the Starlight Express, and in that time her life had transformed in ways she had never imagined. Where fear once dominated her every thought, there was now hope, courage, and a sense of belonging. Caleb appeared beside her, carrying 2 cups of steaming tea. He handed one to her with a smile. "Morning," he said. Mara smiled faintly, taking the cup. "Morning. I never imagined this, that we could build something like this." Caleb leaned against the railing, watching the canyon below. "Humans have always done remarkable things," he said. "Sometimes it takes the right circumstances to see what we're capable of. And sometimes, a little help from each other." Mara thought of the long journey, the fall from the train, the terrifying moments of uncertainty, and the hands that caught her when she had nothing to hold on to. Caleb had been that help, steady and unwavering. But she also realized that the settlement itself, the people, and the community they had nurtured, had created a space where humans could thrive in their best form. The child stirred again, tiny kicks that felt like whispers of possibility. Mara pressed a hand against her belly. "You're going to grow up in a world full of curiosity, kindness, and learning," she whispered. "And you're going to see just how humans can shine, even in the wildest places." Caleb placed a hand over hers. "Humans survive because we care, we learn, and we adapt. Your child will inherit that and maybe help others see it too." Life in the settlement continued with quiet purpose. Mara taught the children about machines, showing them how small adjustments could make a grav saddle hover more efficiently or how water systems could conserve energy. Caleb shared stories of frontier life, emphasizing problem-solving, resilience, and kindness. Visitors from distant settlements came and went, learning from their methods, taking back knowledge to improve their own communities. Each person who visited left with an understanding that humans, when guided by curiosity and care, could accomplish extraordinary things. One day, Mara noticed a group of children experimenting with a grav saddle that had once been considered too advanced for young learners. To her amazement, the machines adjusted themselves automatically, moving in ways that suggested an understanding of intention rather than command. She looked at Caleb, her eyes wide with wonder. "It's like they know what to do," she whispered. Caleb nodded slowly, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Humans understand in ways machines can't. Your child is part of that. It's subtle, but it's happening." Mara felt a wave of awe and responsibility. The settlement had grown from necessity into a model of human potential. Machines and humans worked together, not because they had to, but because they could. Curiosity, creativity, and empathy guided their actions, and the child she carried would grow in this environment, learning from humans who valued these qualities above all else. Weeks passed, and Mara's belly grew round and strong. The settlement prepared for the child's arrival with care and anticipation. Caleb and Mara built a small nursery, simple but filled with love. The children of the settlement painted colorful murals, designed playful machines, and arranged soft mats near windows to watch the canyon sunrise. Mara watched it all in quiet awe. The day finally came when the child was born. It was a calm morning, the sun spilling over the plateau in a warm glow. Mara held the newborn in her arms, feeling the tiny heartbeat against her own. Caleb stood beside her, his hand resting gently on hers, eyes shining with pride and joy. "You're safe," Mara whispered to the baby, "and you're going to grow surrounded by people who care, who create, and who believe in the best of humanity." The child's eyes opened, curious and bright, reflecting the light of the twin moons and the sun above the canyon. Mara felt a surge of hope. This small life, already connected to the machines and the community, would grow to carry forward the values they had all nurtured: creativity, cooperation, and compassion. In the following months, the settlement became a hub of inspiration for the frontier. Travelers brought stories of other settlements adopting the same methods, sharing knowledge freely, teaching children to innovate, and creating communities based on empathy rather than fear or greed. Mara and Caleb watched with quiet pride as their simple frontier home became a spark of change across the galaxy. The child grew quickly, learning from the community, exploring the plateau, and interacting with the machines in ways that surprised even Caleb. Grav saddles and robotic helpers responded instinctively, almost as if guided by the child's curiosity and attention. Mara realized that this was more than adaptation. It was a new step in human potential. The frontier was no longer just a place to survive. It was a place to thrive, to inspire, and to create. One evening, Mara and Caleb walked to the edge of the plateau, the child nestled safely in her arms. The sun set in brilliant hues of red and gold, casting long shadows across the canyon. The Starlight Express passed in the distance, a reminder of the journey that had begun everything. "Look at how far we've come," Caleb said softly. Mara smiled, feeling the warmth of the moment. "It's more than I ever imagined. We've created a place where humans can truly shine," Caleb nodded. "And it's just the beginning. Humans have always found ways to adapt and grow. Now others will see what's possible." The child stirred in Mara's arms, reaching out toward a small grav saddle hovering nearby. It hovered closer, responding intuitively to the tiny gestures. Mara felt a profound sense of connection, not just to the child, but to the community, the machines, and the larger human story. This small life embodied the values they had all worked to nurture: curiosity, empathy, creativity, and cooperation. As night fell, the twin moons reflected in the canyon pools and the stars glittered above. Mara placed the child in a soft cradle she had prepared. Caleb sat nearby, watching over them both. The settlement hummed with life, a quiet harmony of humans, machines, and the natural world. Myra whispered to the child once more, "You are part of a long story, one of hope, kindness, and ingenuity. And one day you will help others see what humans can achieve when they work together." Caleb added, "Humans endure, we adapt, we inspire, and now through you the story continues." The child gurgled softly, as if understanding. Mara felt a sense of peace she had never known. The galaxy was vast and uncertain, but within this small frontier settlement, humans had created a place where hope could flourish, where knowledge could spread, and where the best qualities of humanity could shine without fear or violence. Weeks later, traders and visitors returned, eager to see the newborn and the thriving settlement. They marveled at the way humans and machines interacted, how children learned by doing, and how a small community had become a beacon of inspiration. Mara watched with quiet pride as the child reached out, touching a grav saddle that hovered steadily beneath tiny fingers. The machine responded instinctively, reinforcing the idea that humans and technology could grow together harmoniously. Caleb stood beside Mara, whispering, "This is just the beginning. Humans have always found a way to shine even in the darkest places, and now your child will continue that story." Mara nodded, feeling the truth of his words. They had survived fear, uncertainty, and danger. They had created a life that embodied the best of humanity. And now, in this frontier world, a new generation would grow to understand, innovate, and inspire. The settlement thrived, the children laughed, the machines worked in harmony, and the stars glittered above. Mara, holding her child, knew that the frontier world had become more than a home. It was a symbol, a living testament to what humans could achieve when guided by curiosity, compassion, and cooperation. And as the night settled over the plateau, Mara whispered one last promise to the child: "We will always care, we will always create, and we will always shine." Caleb smiled, resting a hand on hers. "Together," he said. And for the first time since she had fallen from the Starlight Express, Mara knew with certainty that humans, even in the most distant reaches of the galaxy, had the power to change their fate, and that their story would continue, brighter than any star. The frontier was vast. The journey was long, but humanity had found its path, and Mara, Caleb, and their child were at the very heart of it.